Have you ever been madly and wildly in love? The kind of love that makes you feel like you just adore somebody. It's a love that inspires devotion. It's a feeling, a way of being that we know that most of us experience at some point in our lives. However that turns out, it's something deeply and beautifully human, and that's the kind of love that I want to talk about today. Let me first remind you of what we're doing. We are exploring meaning during this pandemic. We're exploring meaning because we are going through a challenging and traumatic experience together, and because this is a pattern interrupt in our normal way of being. And those two things together are hard. They're hard, but they also provide us with the possibility of growth, of emotional growth, spiritual growth, psychological growth. That possibility exists. And so if we can take our attention and turn it away from this relentless pursuit of happiness, and happiness is good, but if we can pause, and instead of just pursuing happiness in itself, we can bring our attention to the quest for meaning, then we can come out of this better. And together we can be more ready to face the challenges that were with us before this pandemic began. And so in order to engage this quest for meaning, we are talking about the love that we give, the work that we offer, about having courage in the face of suffering, about learning to find the wisdom on the other side of grief by actually experiencing the grief, and about the story that we tell about this moment. And so, in this series of reflections today, we're looking at the love that we give, and we're looking at it. This is the second part, actually. Yesterday I talked about loving kindness, and today I want to talk about devotion. And this part, of all parts, might really not be for everybody. So if you have a very dogmatic experience and relationship with the idea of God, this is probably not going to be for you. If you are dogmatically against the idea of God, this is probably not going to be for you. Because this is about devotion, and we are drawing on Viktor Frankl's work, and on his what he discovered as a survivor of a concentration camp. There's this part in his telling of the story in which he's undergoing some sort of horrible moment in this long agony of being in a concentration camp, and in that moment he's able to call forth his love for his wife, and he doesn't even know if she's dead or alive, but he can connect with her, and he's filled with this love for this person that even in the midst of this suffering gives him a kind of liberating joy, and he comes to understand that love, and the love that we give, is an integral part of this quest for meaning that we are on, and it's essential for us to get through challenges and suffering and traumatic experiences. And this love, I started by talking about the love that we have for somebody that we fall in love with, because it's familiar there. But oftentimes when we have that for a person that we fall in love with, what we're doing is we are taking all of our greatness and projecting it onto that person. And so then we make all kinds of rash decisions based on this explosion of love that we're feeling. And a couple of years later, that bubble has burst, and this person is a real person with flaws, and we're finding it hard to coexist with them. And so while that experience of love is important, and Viktor Frankl talks about how he helped him, I want to talk about devotion to the divine, the nectar of devotion, like the yogis call it. And if you are coming from a Judeo-Christian tradition, Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Hindu traditions, and other religions, you're familiar with this kind of devotional love. Now, for our purposes, I'm gonna name the great mystery, the divine, what I'm calling God today, the beginning that we don't know and the end that we don't know, the infinite, the creative intelligence that makes all of this possible, whatever you want to call it. I want to think of it as this power, this creative life force that permeates every particle of being, every little bit of the universe is made out of it, right? So therefore you are made out of it. So in some ways there is an experience of God as yourself, as part of you. And then there's an experience of God as everything, as that, and we can see it in nature and in the stars and in just the miracle of being alive. And for this devotional of love to take root and to be practiced, it's good to have a God as thou. So we're talking about God as I and God as that, but God as the thou is God as a different entity, another being that you can bow before, that you can surrender to, that you can worship, that you can be devoted to. And it's okay if it's not the old man in the sky or the figure of the Christ. It can be a deity, a saint, a love object of sorts, because what we're talking about is not. What we're talking about is the idea of just creating this separation that is not even real, just so that you can practice devotion, right? So that you can get on your knees and put your head to the floor, so that you can ask for grace and ask for forgiveness, so that you can express gratitude. It is a medicine that can fill the heart with joy. And interestingly, even in those moments of emptiness, in those moments of agony, in those moments of being locked in your house for too long and not knowing where your next paycheck is going to come from because the economy has fallen apart, in those moments you can call on this deity, on this love object, and you can express your longing for their presence. You can ask them to come into your life. This personification is a projection of sorts, but it can become a useful one because you can hold this ideal and practice devotional love before it. That is a wonderful way to give love, to grow your heart, and to continue on this quest for meaning. Thank you. Love more and cling less.